Hello everyone. Does your charity want to achieve big things? What if you could solve the problem that your non-profit was set up to solve? Completely. Let's find out why you need a BHAG, a Big Hairy Audacious Goal. Hello everyone, I'm Louise from the Social Strategy Cafe and it's lovely to have you here. This channel provides tools and tips to help you, whether you're working for an NGO, whether you're running a charity or a social enterprise. So what is a BHAG and why do you need one? Grab yourself a cuppa and let's take a look. A BHAG is an acronym which stands for Big Hairy Audacious Goal. But what on earth does it mean? And really, does it have to be hairy?
Mad and hairy? You wouldn't be talking about me now, would you?
A BHAG, Big Hairy Audacious Goal, is a long-term, ambitious goal that seems almost impossible, but if achieved, would be transformative. This term was first introduced by business experts Jim Collins and Jerry Porras in their book Built to Last. But BHAGs aren't just for business. Non-profits need them too. Jim Collins claims that the power of the BHAG is that it gets you out of thinking too small. If you work for a non-profit, you probably feel like a hamster on a wheel sometimes, just trying to raise enough money to keep your services going. But what about if you could transfer your charity's vision to the public so that everyone understood it and got inspired by it, and everyone within your organisation could see where you are headed to? It is like everyone in and outside your organisation seeing the North Star and wanting to head in the same direction. The fact that the goal is so big, so hairy, so audacious means that it energises your staff and volunteers as well as your supporters and stakeholders. This acts as an emotional motivator to enable the BHAG to come to life and be achieved. A famous example of a BHAG would be Kennedy's announcement in 1961 that the US would put a man on the moon by the end of the decade. They managed to achieve it with 6 months to spare. What a BHAG does is it starts to align everyone to achieve the same goal. When Kennedy met a toilet cleaner during his tour of NASA and asked what job he did, the janitor famously replied, "Sir, I'm helping to put a man on the moon." This illustrates the power of having a goal that everyone can align themselves with. So why should your non-profit set a BHAG? Let's break it down. 1, it inspires your team and your supporters. A bold vision energises your team, your volunteers and your donors. Instead of just helping the homeless, imagine aiming to end homelessness in your city by 2040. Now that's powerful. Number 2, it attracts major funding. Big goals attract big funders. Grant makers and major donors want to invest in organisations that think big and have a clear vision for making real impact. Number 3 is a BHAG creates long-term focus. It keeps you from just going through the motions. It's your North Star, helping you to stay focused on what really matters instead of getting lost in day-to-day operations. Number 4, it builds a movement. When you aim high, you inspire others to rally behind your cause, and the more people get involved, the more others will want to join. Think about global non-profits like Charity Water. Their mission to end the water crisis has mobilised millions. Their BHAG is to bring clean and safe drinking water to every person on the planet. The BHAG is simple and everyone can understand what they are doing and why they're doing it. It also helps staff understand where they're heading so that they are clear about priorities and decision making. If it doesn't help them meet the BHAG, they don't do it. Another example is SolarAid. SolarAid is a non-profit that aims to provide light through solar power to all those communities that do not have access to electricity. And in 2012, they decided that their BHAG would be to eradicate the use of the kerosene lamp from Africa by the end of that decade and replace it with clean, free light across the continent. Now, this mammoth ambition was huge and probably not really achievable, but according to one of its fundraisers, it was transformative in shaping the organisation's thinking and the actions it prioritised each week. It also changed strategic thinking, engaged supporters wanting to help it achieve its goal, and drastically influenced its programs and fundraising activities. If you want to find out more about Solar Aid, I'll put a link in the description box below. So if you don't have a BHAG as an organisation, you can end up with everyone working hard, but with no joint focus. If no one knows where you're heading as a non-profit, it can be like getting on a bus without knowing what that destination is. A BHAG can help you focus on campaigning and working towards your key purpose, and help you avoid getting embroiled in culture wars, which is a risk, particularly during times when there are local and national elections. A BHAG unifies your organisation and supporters. It can help you gather more support and more funding. It can spark passion in people and motivate them to give a little bit more. A BHAG is also visionary. It helps people to see further than the next few months or years, and it gives your organisation the focus it needs to grow in a particular direction. It can also spur innovation and creative thinking and enable your organisation to take leaps forward. Your BHAG needs to be big and almost impossible to achieve. It needs to be multi-year, probably at least 10 years in the future. It needs to be aspirational, yet simple and understandable. It needs to have a clear finish line, so you need to set a target deadline, and it needs to be obvious when your organisation has achieved it. So how do you go about creating a BHAG for your organisation? Well, you have different options. You could just involve your senior managers in a workshop, but how about getting everyone in your organisation involved? You could even run a competition for staff and volunteers, even your supporters, to come up with your organisational BHAG. Using an organisational approach is a great way to start building excitement and momentum about the direction of your organisation. If you decide to approach this in a group, or perhaps even as multiple groups that feed into one, then I suggest you approach it in this way. Firstly, your contributors should come up with a list of things that the organisation and its staff are deeply passionate about. This should relate to your organisation's core values, its purpose, or its mission. Secondly, your contributors need to think about what your organisation can be best in the world at. This relates to the services you already provide and what experience you have. Finally, non-profits need to consider the resource and skills aspect of the BHAG. What skills and resources do they have available to them? This could be volunteers, patrons, supporters, or potential funding. Then your BHAG should come out of the intersection between all these things. Remember, your BHAG has to be something truly inspirational, something that will capture the imagination of donors, be motivating enough that will prompt new seed investment, or capture the imagination of supporters to help drive the BHAG forward. Ask yourself, will it encourage people to want to volunteer their time to help you reach your goal, or help you recruit skilled staff into your organisation? Will it foster partnerships with business or other non-profits? Is it something that will help solve a problem that people already know about, which is an easier sell? Or is it an issue that people need educating about? Don't forget, the BHAG needs to push your organisation to meet its full potential. It needs to be a longer-term goal with a deadline that is almost unachievable. Your BHAG may relate to the size of your organisation. If you are run by volunteers, you may need a completely different BHAG to a multi-million-dollar organisation. Oh, do not be afraid to dream big. Your BHAG needs to be ambitious enough to get people inspired to get involved. If your BHAG feels doable, then it may not be big enough. If it makes you feel scared, then it may be the right one. Once you've come up with a BHAG, then your organisational strategy needs to be constructed around it. Everything you do as an organisation should consider how it is going to help you meet this goal. Then you need to break up the goal into much smaller achievable steps and have a robust process across your organisation to implement these steps and monitor these over time. Your entire organisation needs to be behind this goal, as it will relate to every aspect of your work and how you communicate with your community, supporters and stakeholders. So you will need to think about how you will communicate this to your staff, your volunteers, your stakeholders, your supporters and your wider community so that they can help you achieve your goal. So, quick conclusion, a BHAG is a big, hairy, audacious goal. It can help your organisation focus on what's really, really important and not get distracted by other issues. It can push your organisation to achieve great things and galvanise staff, stakeholders and new supporters. It can inspire your organisation to be more strategic and transform everyone's thinking. It can drive you from being perhaps a mediocre organisation to something really fantastic and achieving something really amazing. Thank you all you lovely non-profit people for watching. And if you have an idea for a video you'd like to see, let me know in the comments. Have a great week.